Whoever made this deserves a kiss on the mouth. Good Lord.
I mean, this is where you feel a vehicle. Why is it this good?
It's a great question. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode this month of A Moment of Friendly Introspection with Steve and Floyd. As you can see, this is not a normal episode. We are not sitting down in some sort of building, reflecting on life and creativity. We are on the road, and we are headed to Buc-ee's, and my guest is Garrett Anderson. Garrett, how are you?
Doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing very well. You were just saying this. It's kind of a perfect day for a road trip.
Yeah.
Fall is in session. Leaves are great. We're going to be crossing a lot of countryside, and then we're going to end up in Nirvana.
Yes, man. Brisket sandwich.
Oh
That's what I'm getting for lunch.
That's really the reason why we're going, the brisket sandwich.
Yeah.
Man,
are you into, I like the pecans that they do with the...
Immediate no.
I hate pecans.
No? I hate
okay.
Pecans.
I'm sorry. Well, they do this, they do like, you can get any kind. They do like almonds, pecans, cashews, any of that. But they put like this brown sugar crusted
I love brown sugar
or something.
Of course.
It's amazing. So
I'm sure it is.
I don't
Everything
know if you
they
were
touch
into that.
is like manna from heaven. It's like, how's this exist?
And the cleanest restrooms in the world.
Worth going just for the restrooms.
Yeah.
I don't like pecans mainly because I had a family member who lived in Alabama, and whenever we would visit there, they had a pecan tree, and me and my brother would go out and pick pecans.
Yes.
Sometimes it would be easy, and they'd just fall to the ground. We just pick them up off the floor. But sometimes you have to get up in the tree and pick them. I'm like, I hate this.
See, it's funny.
Picking cotton.
It's fun. Oh my gosh, it's fun.
It's not that bad.
It's funny that you say that because I actually have the memory of going outside to a pecan tree at my grandmother's house, picking up pecans and stuff. And to me, that's like a really endearing memory. I love that memory. I had so much fun doing that.
Yeah.
And so that's that's funny.
Well, hey, that's a good place to start. Growing up, how did you find creativity? For those of you who do not know, Garrett's a wonderful pianist and has played with many bands and plays with people in Nashville all the time. Where did that start for you?
Oh my gosh, man. Honestly, I really feel like my entire music background stemmed from church every Sunday.
Yeah.
Because my uncle is the associate pastor and minister of music at the church where I grew up. My aunt played the piano. Mom plays the drums. Dad plays guitar, bass guitar. Mom plays the drums.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So, and my older brother and my first cousin are both just amazing guitarists, bass players. They can do it all. So I really feel like with me being the youngest, I feel like I always got a lot of inspiration just from watching my family play every Sunday. And, I truly felt like and still feel like we know how church music is.
Of course.
And church musicians, it's almost always a volunteer basis.
Yeah.
And so for our tiny little area of, small town Alabama, I always felt like I always felt like they were maybe a cut above
Yeah.
what a lot of other just church volunteers
Yeah.
were. And so I remember when I started to get to play a little bit
Yeah.
in church, when I started getting to the point where it's like I would play a song every now and then or something like that. That was always really inspiring to me. And that's honestly like all my earliest memories of music are playing in church.
Yeah. Did you have any early church songs that were like your favorites to play?
I tell you what, man, any of the old, like, upbeat congregational hymns, those were just always so fun to me. Like, just any of the upbeat cut time, that kind of thing. People clap along, sing along. It was just, those were always so much fun to me.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Were there any, like, players around town that you heard of that were like, oh, dude, like, they go to this church and they're just an insane drummer? Like, because, like, I feel like we had that a little bit in the church I went to. Like, we were kind of a famous band in the area.
Oh,
like,
really?
Oh, my gosh, the Thrive Band. Like, but we played a different style of music than y'all. Like, we were
right,
a Pentecostal church, very charismatic.
Yeah. And I will say also in regards to that, I know a lot of people, if you say First Baptist Church, a lot of times the first thing that comes to mind is super,
Yeah.
afraid to raise your hand, afraid to do anything. And we were never that way. Our church was always more charismatic, maybe not to the level of, like a Pentecostal church or Assembly of God or something like that, but it was more that direction than what I feel like people's first thought of a First Baptist church is, so.
I feel that. It was definitely very expressive for us. And we were singing like modern worship stuff at the time.
Right.
So like Bethel and Elevation.
And to answer your question, no, I don't really remember or recall any other, knowing of any other churches or church bands in the area that, now, of course, when you're in a place like Nashville, or Memphis or, any of those other scenes, yes, of course, you're going to have that. But maybe there was and I was just unaware of it, but
maybe.
Yeah,
okay.
So.
Sorry, I'm juggling a lot of things at once
You're
here.
Good, man. You're doing great.
Trying to think of what's next and trying to look at anything interesting. Talk to me about like when you started playing for other people outside the church, because even at a very young age, I remember you going on tour with some Southern gospel people, and you and Adam and Austin, all of you.
Yeah, so there's a guy named Steve Ladd who is a great tenor vocalist, tenor singer, great voice, awesome dude, awesome singer. He came to our church a few times. Our pastor actually met him, found out who he was, met him through the Bridge Ministry here in Nashville, Tennessee, where they feed the homeless.
Yeah.
And, they always have like a little church service type of deal on Tuesday nights. I think that's still going on to my knowledge, but
that's awesome.
That's where my pastor met this guy, Steve Ladd, and heard him sing, and he ended up having him at our church, a few times. And just, whenever we'd have a guest in, we would usually still have some kind of, maybe the whole congregation sing a hymn or sing one song, before we bring up the guest.
Yeah.
And he just, for whatever reason, he really kind of, took a liking to our band, our family and stuff like that. And so every now and then he would have us come up and, play a song with him or something like that. And I think it also he thought it was really cool that like me and my brother and my cousin Adam, that we were young guys, young kids really. I want to say I was 14 or 15 years old at that time. Nuts. And so he ended up kind of just asking us about, he said, hey man, like every now and then I'll have a few concerts or dates where sometimes the the promoters or whoever books the show, they sometimes even ask, like, man, do you ever bring a live band with you?
Oh, wow.
And so he kind of tossed out the idea, like, is that something you guys might be interested in doing? And of course, you know, we were just,
not? Yeah.
I mean, and the fact that we were even going to get paid to do
Oh
that,
my
like, we
gosh,
didn't even
yes.
know that was a thing. You
How
know?
much were you getting paid? I really want to know.
You know, I truly can't remember right off the bat.
Sure.
I truly can't. I wish I could. Probably got it written down somewhere.
Yeah.
But
That's great.
But yeah, that was really my first exposure at all with, well, I'll put it this way. Before I did the first concert with him,
Yeah.
I didn't even have a stage keyboard yet.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I literally still had, it was a keyboard at home, but it was like a big piece of furniture. It wasn't you know what I'm saying?
I do.
I literally had to go and buy, or my parents, I
Yeah.
didn't buy it.
Yeah.
And so thankful for them. But yeah, literally went and bought, you know, my first keyboard, you know,
Good Lord.
that I could take and set up on stage. And so really that was, in the first concert that we ever did, it was at a church around the Hoax Bluff,
Oh, yeah, cool.
Gadsden area.
Okay.
And I tell you what, we were just absolutely, like, I mean, we were superheroes. We were on top of
course
the
you
world
were.
after that.
Was anyone in the crowd, like, did they know who you were? Other than, like, your parents or whatever?
No, it was
Okay.
just family.
Got it.
But I'll tell you what, man.
Oh,
It was,
man.
that was euphoric. And I think, you know, that's so cool to look back. I haven't thought about this in a long time.
Well, hey, I love
It's
it.
great that you bring this up, but yeah, that I don't know. I'm having a tough time coming up with the words just to,
Yeah.
you know, because, and I think it's important that it's good to be reminded of things like this so we never lose
Amen.
that, you know,
Preach.
because it's so easy to get, you know, jaded and everything becomes routine, everything becomes a job.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
So it's good to reflect on that and remember why, you know, what made me love this in the first place.
Yeah. Did your parents, like, you come from a very musical family, sure, but, like, did they ever heavily influence that? Like, hey, you should try this thing, or was it just you
No.
naturally? Yeah.
No, they never, you know, I was obviously around it all the time, but they never, not once, pushed me into anything musical.
Yeah.
And in fact, so funny story, my older brother, he's 6 years older than me. His name's Austin. He literally, I'm not even joking, he came out of the womb making a guitar chord. Like, I'm not even joking. They could pull up the picture. They have
so great.
they have like one of his newborn pictures, and he's literally,
Wow.
I mean, they can point to it and say, yeah, that's whatever chord shape it is, you know. And so
That's awesome.
from the time he literally started like playing the bass guitar when he was 4.
Yeah.
I mean, we have
That's nuts.
my parents actually have a small little cassette. They used to have this little, small little record, I don't know what you call it, but
Sure.
you could record a few tracks like just there at the
Yeah,
house.
yeah,
And there was one year around Christmas time that my dad, he had like a little drum machine
Yeah.
and played the electric guitar, made like a little thing of him playing Jingle Bell Rock or
That's
something
cool.
like that.
Yeah.
And my older brother, when he was 4 years old, played bass on that recording.
That's disgusting.
He could literally, his feet weren't even touching the ground in the chair that he was sitting in, and he's playing the bass on it.
Unbelievable.
So, all that to say, he got the bug like
Yeah.
really early, and for me, it wasn't that way.
Yeah.
You know, he was the one that anytime a guitar would get pulled out, anytime singing happened, it didn't matter if he was around other kids and they
Yeah.
were playing, like he would stop what he was doing, and he would go check it out. It's like he was just,
Oh, yeah.
and that was never me. In fact, I guess just because the only other experience my parents had was with him, I guess they just kind of assumed that, hey, maybe I may not take to it,
Sure. Yeah.
And so it came on a little slower for me, but I still did start when I was, I started taking lessons when I was 6.
Okay, you took lessons.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. From Gerald Roberts.
Oh,
who
my
you
gosh.
know, yeah.
Of course, yeah.
So, I actually talked on the phone with him not too awfully long ago.
Okay.
And that was...
Good old Gerald.
Yeah, that was... Man, I love that guy. He really did teach me a lot, and just what a great man,
So obviously, like, we're going to talk more about what you do now, but for anyone who's trying to get better at something, they have to have the desire to want to get better.
Yes.
Like, I played trumpet in high school and middle school, never practiced, never cared enough to get better. I sang a little bit in high school, like some like not operatic, just like choral stuff. Never cared enough to want to try and get better at it. I just like doing what I could already do.
Mm-hmm.
But for the people who really want it, like, they're going to practice.
Right.
They're going to find pieces that challenge them. How early did you recognize you were doing that?
So I never necessarily had a problem with practicing in the general sense of the word.
Sure.
I had a very tough time with practicing what I was supposed to be practicing.
Got it.
So I took, piano lessons starting at age 6, and it was a heavy emphasis on classical music and,
Of course.
Reading. And I tell you what, man, still to this day, I guess I was just not meant to be a good reader, because even going through and reading music from the age of 6 until 18 is about when I stopped taking lessons. And I'm still just a horrible sight reader. I mean, if I have time with it, I can really, I can get there, but I'm not a good reader. I never have been. So all the time, I would sit at my keyboard piano at home and I'd plug my headphones in and I would play and I would spend time there, but a lot of times I wasn't practicing. I wasn't practicing my classical music. I was trying to learn things I'd heard on the radio or heard on CDs, or I was trying to learn songs that I knew.
Yeah, okay.
And so that I've always had that desire to sit down and try to figure things out and get better, but I did my parents did have to give me a few talking tos about practicing my actual lesson stuff. Yeah. That way I wasn't just completely wasting their money.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. So 12 years of lessons.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And when does it get to a point where hey, what else can you teach me? I'm already doing everything, really.
No, so I spent 7 of those years with Gerald Roberts, who I mentioned. And then when I was about 13 or so, I actually swapped over and started taking lessons from 2 different professors at Jacksonville State University.
Okay.
One of which was this guy named Andy Nevela. He's actually the jazz
sick.
over the jazz department there.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, that was a really cool experience.
Okay.
I almost wish I had it to do over now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I almost feel like with me being 13, 14 years old at the time, a lot of these jazz guys are there's not nearly as much structure as there is in the classical teaching realm. And so literally this man I would walk into lessons every week and he was the coolest dude. He would be so chilled out. He'd just be, hey man, what's going on? He'd be like, what do you want to play today? What do you want to do? You want to learn something? That was his whole personality. And so obviously, sometimes I would walk in and I would have questions about, yes, like I've been wondering about this. I want you to show me this, show me some examples of this.
Yeah.
And then other times I was almost like, I don't even know.
Sure.
I don't know what to ask.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
felt that.
And so literally sometimes it would just be, he had 2 grand pianos in his office there. They were kind of sitting side by side.
Okay.
And
That's cool.
and he would be like, well, let's just both sit down. He'd be like, let's just jam. Like, let's just play the 12
Yeah.
bar blues.
That'll be
key of F.
$200.
Yeah. Well, so he'd say, let's play 12 bar blues, key of F or whatever. And he'd say, hey, 12 bars, I'll comp, you solo.
Cool.
And then we'll swap. And
Yeah.
then we'll just keep doing
I
that,
love
going
that.
back and forth.
Yeah.
And that was cool because then inevitably I would be over there comping and he would just play some face melting line
Yeah.
and I would just stop and go,
Hey.
okay, you're gonna have to tell me what that was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was cool, but I was taking from him and a lady named at the time Wendy Freeland.
2.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So I think it was on Tuesdays I was going to see Dr. Nevela,
Okay.
and on Wednesdays or Thursdays I was going to see Dr. Freeland.
Okay.
Now get this, the 2 of them, Dr. Andy Nevela and Dr. Wendy Freeland, the 2 of them end up getting married.
Of course they do.
And
Of course they do.
get married, buy a house, move in together. And so there were actually a few times where towards the end of me taking lessons,
Mhm.
there were a few times where I would just go over to their house
That's
for
pretty
lessons.
awesome.
And it was
Wow.
always funny because, you would show up for one of them and the other one would be there.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. But they taught me a lot, and I have a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah.
For them. Great people.
So we're gonna fast forward a little bit. You continue to tour and play for people in high school, but then college comes around and you go to a school in Tennessee
Yeah.
to play piano there. What was your music college experience like?
Oh man, I had so much fun in college. I went to a place called Bethel University. It's in tiny, tiny little McKenzie, Tennessee. And I tell you what, they've really got a cool thing happening over there because, all of your Belmonts and Lee Universities and even Mobile, they've got a great music department. And,
Yeah.
the cool thing that separated Bethel's music department is the fact that it was purely extracurricular.
Oh, wow.
I mean, so they scholarshiped their kids the same way that you get a scholarship for athletes.
Got it. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, so you didn't have to be a music major. They used to always use the example like, okay, you've got this amazing high school quarterback. Is he going to come to school and major in football? Like, no. You go and you be a student and do whatever you want to study, and then your scholarship to be a part of our team.
Yeah.
And so they took the same approach.
Okay.
And they offer really good scholarships for if you're a singer, a musician. So their whole program encompasses, they have a large gospel choir
Yeah.
where they do a lot of like Brooklyn Tabernacle style, like those kind of arrangements. They have the marching band that performs for all the sporting events. They have a theater department, musical theater. They had a bluegrass band.
Oh, wow.
And they had some other little offshoots of, like a smaller 16 voice group.
Yeah.
But just really cool stuff there, man. And I tell you what, as you know, we traveled around there too. And I tell you, man, just getting that education.
Totally. Yeah.
And, knowing there are times where it's like, hey, I've got to be up, dressed and ready for, the van to pick me up at 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And we're going to go to this place and I've got to unload my gear and set it up. And there's a lot going on and you have to work together as a team to pull off this entire production.
Yeah.
Oh, they have a production department as well,
cool.
you know, sound, lighting, media.
Yeah.
So just really cool. I mean, it's, especially if you have a scholarship to go there and be a part of it, it's almost like paid practice. You know, it's...
Yeah. That's cool.
And I tell you what, just the knowledge that you gain from, okay, take just a weekend trip and being able to see what went well and what didn't go well, what worked, what didn't work, learning how to be socially aware about certain things, you know, knowing that, okay, the head technical director, he has a lot on his plate right now. There is stuff going wrong.
Yeah.
Now probably isn't the best time for me to go over there and try to cut up with him and joke with him. I mean, but these are the things that you hopefully, you know, learn while you're there before you get out into the real world, you know. And
totally.
So,
okay.
Very grateful for that.
Yeah. What was best and worst shows during the college years? I'm sure there's some wild stories of some weird churches or whatever.
Oh man, my favorite church story, and it really has nothing to do with the church because we went there several times throughout my 4 years there. But there was, I can't remember if it was my first year or my second year. I want to say it was my sophomore year.
Okay.
But we went to this church in Kentucky, and for this particular trip, the head technical director, his name was Daniel, he was not, and I don't remember why, but he was not going to be able to make this trip with us. Now, Daniel has a lot of responsibilities so he drives.
Oh, geez.
He drives the van that holds the band,
of course,
and the crew.
Yeah.
We pull a trailer behind us, and he's a great front of house engineer. I mean, he kind of oversees the entire setup process.
Yeah.
He mixes the show.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he's a very big part to this entire operation.
Sure.
And he was not able to go on this trip. So he had a student that was, you know, he was kind of a, what's the word for it? He was kind of mentoring this kid.
Okay,
he was an older student. He was good at what he did.
Yeah.
And so he kind of put him in charge, basically. I mean, we still had other staff members along, but he kind of put this guy in charge of, hey, kind of oversee this, and like you'll mix the show and all of this. And so part of that process is also the Friday beforehand loading the trailer.
Sure.
Well,
where's this going?
So we show up to this church and we're already late.
Lord.
We're late. We're running behind. We almost ran out of gas on the way there.
No.
Because, that's a whole other story. I forgot.
Let's go there.
Okay. Do we have time?
Well, I mean, of course.
The associate choir director, she ended up driving the band and crew.
Yeah.
It was like a 16-passenger van. And she navigated us to the night church because we were doing two shows that day. We were doing a morning show and a night show. She drove us to the night church first, accidentally. Well, then when we realized we had to turn around, and luckily they weren't too far, but I mean, it was about 40 minutes or so apart.
Yes.
And so now we are obviously, let's just call it an hour behind.
Yeah, sure.
And we desperately need fuel.
Yeah.
And so
oh God.
we start to head that direction, and we're all through the country, and there is nowhere to stop. You know, the display on your dash where like 10 miles until empty, or
Yes, of
you
course.
know, we drove on it saying 0 for at least 5 minutes.
Oh my good Lord.
I mean, it said 0 miles till empty.
Especially with all those people and the, oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, we had a whole band
Yeah.
and crew, and
horrifying.
So we finally barely make it, and when I say we are on fumes, make it to this gas station, get fuel, then we finally make it to the church that we're supposed to be at.
Yes.
Now, let me
Oh my gosh, there's more.
let me say this.
Say it. Oh God.
We walk out already incredibly behind.
Of course.
Everybody is very flustered.
Yes.
Tensions are high. We start the process of setting up, and we realize, or some of the tech crew realizes, we don't have any choir mics.
Oh no.
So the choir that was before, you know, we always have these mics on the stand, and it's like, we don't have them. Well, then our drummer realizes,
Oh no.
I don't have my toms. How do you forget your toms?
For real.
So he literally has kick, snare, hat, cymbals,
Gross.
which, you know,
Oh
and then-
man.
I'm setting my keyboard up, and we had 2 keyboard players at the time,
Nice.
and Grantham was the other guy's name.
Mm.
Killer, awesome player. He had like a little briefcase that we would keep
Okay.
things like our sustain pedals and
Yeah.
just, you know, little odds and ends. Well, that's nowhere to be found.
Good God.
So we don't have a sustain pedal for either of our keyboards. So,
Oh my.
and maybe not even the power cables as well. I don't remember what all was in there.
Yeah.
So we get there already incredibly behind. There is no choir mics.
Yeah.
There's no power cables, sustain pedals, whatever, for the keyboards.
Yeah.
The drummer has no toms.
Good Lord.
And so what
I mean,
we
the
end
show
up,
must go on, right?
yes. So what we ended up doing, the church there obviously had a keyboard,
Okay.
a very
Yes, sure.
very low budget keyboard,
Sure.
and we just said, I guess this is what we'll play, and I guess we'll just swap
Okay, yeah.
swap out, like, you'll play these songs, I'll play these songs.
Sure.
The drummer played the show with no toms, just kick,
Amazing.
snare, hat,
Love
and
that.
he is a beast. So he was actually able to, I'm sure nobody even noticed,
Sure,
because
yeah.
he's so great.
Yeah.
And the choir just belted it out, and I'm sure that the guy back there mixing just really kind of
Yeah.
pushed the stems.
Good
So
God Almighty.
um,
Oh, that's a great story. On that note, we're going to take our first break. We'll be back in a second. Welcome back, everyone. We're still on the road, still just chatting about whatever comes up. Talked about one of the worst, or at least strangest, occurrences.
no, you can
on the
say
road.
worst. You can say worst.
One of the worst occurrences on the road. Well, I would love to transition into, what do you do now? You live in Nashville now. After college, you moved back to Alabama.
I did.
What did you do there?
So I moved back home, truly with no idea what was next. I mean, I knew I had goals in mind,
Sure.
stuff I wanted to do. I knew that eventually I wanted to make my way to Nashville, but I had no plan.
Yeah.
No plan whatsoever. But the good news is I really didn't have to wait too long. I graduated, and I believe it was 2 weeks after that.
Oh, wow.
2 weeks, I got a call from, so, little backstory, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
when I was a senior in high school, I got a phone call from a guy named Scott Fowler, who in the Southern, if anybody is familiar with the Southern gospel music world, you're probably very familiar with that name. He used to sing in a really big-time famous quartet called the Cathedrals Quartet, and he started his own group after that called Legacy 5, and he had given me a call when I was a senior in high school. They were having a piano player leave their band, and he wanted to know if that was something I might be interested in doing. And so I thought about it, but honestly, I never gave it a ton of consideration. I was pretty dead set that I wanted to go to Bethel, go to college, and do that. I knew I had a scholarship to go do it, and my mind was pretty much made up on doing that. So it's all good. And then literally, man, it was 4 years later. Like exactly same month of May or June, maybe by this time. But I mean, you couldn't draw it up anymore. It was exactly 4 years later. Right after I graduated college. He actually sent me a text first, or he tried to call me and I missed his call. And then he sent me a text, and it was funny because I still had our thread from 4 years ago, and we had not texted one time in that time period. And his text to me literally just said, "All right, man, ... do you want to try this again?" Question mark.
That's so good.
And so obviously, I just graduated. I didn't really have a plan. So I thought this will be a good thing to get into. It was a good job. Something that would just get me kind of out there doing it. Maybe get to meet some people, and I knew that long term I didn't want to play in a Southern gospel quartet forever, but in that genre and in that world, that was one of the better jobs out there to have.
Totally.
And I was very thankful to be considered again for it. So I learned 22 songs in the course of like 3 days. I think it was 3 or 4 days. He ended up calling me and saying, he called me on a Wednesday and said, "Well, hey, we leave Saturday night.
Good God.
You wanna just come out for a trip?" I want to say it was just 2 concerts and then back. And I was like, "Yeah, let's do that." And he was like, "Well, cool. I'll get you some material or whatever." And it was 22 songs, and I had basically from Wednesday night until, truthfully, like Saturday afternoon. Because I was, still living in Alabama, and their bus left from, at that time, Gallatin, Tennessee, which is north of Nashville. So it was about a 4-hour drive.
Oof.
And so I went and did that. Trip went great. Went and did another trip with them. And when I was on that second trip, he ended up hiring me and giving me the job while I was out there. So that was cool, man. I did that for about a couple years. And made the move to Nashville in May of 2022.
Wow.
So basically just a year after, it was May of 2021 when I graduated Bethel. Moved back to Alabama. So I was really only back there for a year before I got the chance to move up here. So,
man,
that's how it started.
How in the world did you learn 22 songs in 3.5 days? Like, did they let you have sheets for the first run, or no?
So no. Or well, they didn't tell me that I couldn't do that.
Yeah, okay.
But just with the nature of how a show or how a concert in that world kind of works, you just never see that. You never see musicians with a stand and looking at. I just didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to just know them.
Yeah.
So, man, I just listened and listened and listened on loop to everything. And then I would sit down at the piano and I would just play them and play them and play them and play them. And somehow I ended up remembering everything.
Yeah. So Southern Gospel it's more like, how do I say this? If you're going to a live show, do you want to hear what's on the track? Or do you want it to be like a pop show? Like, oh, this is different. This isn't what I just go to the recording for. Are the people expecting to hear the piano part on the track?
Well, it just depends. There are some musicians in that world that have a very, fans know who they are and love what they do, and they expect to hear what they do.
Yeah.
And then sometimes there are other guys that just kind of, and not saying there's anything wrong with this, but they kind of just fill a seed, and and they may be there for moments if they want to do something, without the track, play behind their talking. Hey, sing this chorus with us, because a lot of those concerts have a church atmosphere to them. It's more like a worship service than a concert. But so it just depends. I enjoyed my time there, and I tell you, I love all of the guys that I was traveling with.
Yeah.
Made lifelong friends with each of those individuals. But as I told you, I knew from the beginning that I knew I was not going to be sold out to this is what I want to do for my entire career.
Yeah.
So it was a great stepping stone, I guess, if you can say it that way.
Yeah.
I was able to go out, make a living, and it afforded me the opportunity to be able to move to Nashville with a gig, and then once I got here in town, that's where some other things started to pick up a little bit.
Yeah. I can imagine your answer, but I want to ask anyway. How do you find the ability to be creative during a live show, even though you are not the artist? Like, of course, you're playing a part, you're playing the piano, and we know, if you listen to the song, you know what should happen, but how do you infuse yourself in that?
That's an amazing question.
Thank you.
I don't, oh gosh. I don't know that I've ever thought that deeply about it.
Oh.
I think it's always just kind of been a natural expression of what happens in that moment. I mean, I do realize that I'm a firm believer that one of two things: either A, people's playing reflects their personality, or it reflects who they want to be, who they wish they were. So I've known some people that are incredibly timid and shy, very meek, not type A personality.
Yeah.
And that comes across. And they're playing. They play passively.
Sure.
And even though what they play is good, you can tell that there's not as much authority there.
Yeah.
But I've equally played with some musicians. I have a couple that are coming to mind right now that they are very passive, very kind, timid, shy, but when you put an instrument in their hands, they turn into a banshee, you know, and it's just, and I almost think there's part of that is because maybe they wish that they were a little more,
sure,
you know, a little more forward, a little more confident, a little, whatever the word you want to use. And I think when you put them in that scenario, that's where they feel like they can be that way.
Yeah.
Maybe that makes sense.
No, yeah, it did to me. How do you feel like you play?
I feel like my playing reflects my personality, and it depends on the scenario, because like everybody, not to sound weird, but you know, we all kind of have different personalities depending on who we're around.
Sure.
You know, I have certain people where, you know, I'm a cut up and I joke around and goof off. And then there are other people that I'm around where I'm more serious, and I'm not the first one to speak up. I'm a, you know, a listen first. And I think that definitely comes out with, I've never been one to walk into a room that I'm unfamiliar with and just immediately own the room.
Sure.
I'm always going to listen first. And so with doing like studio sessions, for example, if I'm walking into uncharted territory, unfamiliar, you know, I don't know these guys, I don't know the artist, I don't know the producer.
Yeah.
I'm going to take more of a back seat.
Sure.
Unless they specify or ask.
Yeah.
You know, for X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
But then there are other rooms that I get in, and it's like me, okay, this group of musicians, we've built a rapport, and we're buddies, and we're friends.
Yeah.
And if I feel led to step out a little bit, I'll do that.
Sure.
You know, so it's, I think this is just further proof that just how connected music and life are. I mean, it's a language, you know,
for sure.
And I don't know, I love that. It's a beautiful thing when you have a group full of people that are friends. I have made music, good music with people that I don't have as much of a friendship with.
Sure.
But I'm convinced that when everybody in that room together are friends and genuinely like each other, you can tell. It comes across.
Absolutely. That's kind of a good transition into talking about what you do now. So you moved to Nashville. Eventually you left Legacy 5.
Yes.
But you still played around town. You started touring with another band, but also you picked up studio session work. Can you explain like what session work is for the people?
Yeah, so it is, I feel like days when I get to do that, I feel like there's a big segment of the population that would be either completely bored out of their mind while this goes on, or think that it is the coolest thing in the world.
Sure.
I happen to be in the latter group, obviously, because basically, like for instance, I did a session last week, the most recent thing that I did. I got called for it and just said, hey, here's where we're going to be. We start at 10.
Yep.
That's all I knew.
Yep.
I had no idea what the music was going to be.
Incredible.
I didn't know who the artist was. I didn't know what other musicians were going to be there.
Yeah.
Nothing. It was just, hey, see you at 10 a.m. Are you available?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, 10 a.m. I'll see you there. Okay, sounds good. So I show up, walk in, and for this particular day, I only knew 2 of the other musicians, but 3 of the other guys I had never met before.
Yeah.
I didn't know the artist. Walked in, and it was just, hey, we've got 2 songs today. They're kind of modern country.
Sure.
And so what happened is the artist in the control room, just got his acoustic guitar, sat down on the couch, and just sat there and played and sang us his song.
Okay.
And the guy that was the session leader that day, he stood there with a piece of paper and a pencil, and as the artist played the song and sang the song, he wrote out a number chart, and once he had that, made copies of it, handed it to everyone, and then everybody walks out to their respective instrument, and you sit down and play the song.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, man, watching, and I certainly don't feel like I belong in this league, but some of the people that do this at the highest level, you know, the average consumer, you know, you hear a song on the radio,
Sure.
and what is amazing is that was created, or at least the bones of it came to be in probably 10 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing how you walk in there with nothing,
Yeah.
and then you come out after just a couple hours, 3 hours,
Yeah.
with something hopefully incredible, you know.
Hopefully. Yeah. It is pretty amazing. And of course, Nashville's famous for stuff like this. Like they have, especially back in the heyday of early 2000s and 90s, 80s, 70s, like they would have big studios all around town.
Right.
And some of the best players ever would just make a living going there and recording songs for the artists.
Right.
How did you get started in all that?
Man, it's something that I knew I always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know to what extent or if I would ever be able to.
Yeah.
But all I knew is that growing up, when I listened to any CD, album, whatever,
Yeah.
I always loved to open it up and take the jacket out and read the musicians that played on it.
Yeah.
And where it was recorded at and where it was mixed at. And, you know, so I always just had this fascination with that.
Yeah.
And I started realizing that on several of my favorite records, a lot of the same people were playing on them.
Yeah.
And for a lot of these guys, you know, there have been several musicians here that until the last couple of years, I never even knew what they looked like.
Sure.
I never knew, you know, they're just average people, you know, that walking down the street, nobody would know who they are.
Yeah.
Nobody would recognize them. Yet everything that you're hearing on the radio in that restaurant, they, you know, they're playing on.
Yeah.
It's really insane. So I've always just thought that was cool. And a big hero of mine is a guy named Gordon Mode.
Yeah.
He's a blind from birth piano player, just insane.
Yes,
he's
true.
proof that God plays favorites with certain people. And I
Well,
got
not quite all the way.
well,
That's wrong. I shouldn't have said that.
no, but
God. Okay.
But so I got to meet him in a little bit before I moved to Nashville.
Okay.
Now I had met him
Yeah.
before when I was younger, like went and saw a few of his shows, but that was just a, you know, shake his hand.
Sure.
Hey, how's it going? I love what you do.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Uh-huh.
But so funny enough, it ties back into when I was still with Legacy 5.
Uh-huh.
Gordon Mode actually co-produced one of their records, and they decided they were going to do a live DVD
Okay.
video shoot of all the songs on that record over at Ocean Way
Nice.
Studios. And they hired all of the same session players to play on the DVD as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
But I got to play on it this time because
Nice.
they were finishing up the record like as I got hired, so I wasn't actually playing on the
okay.
the record. But I did get to play on the video, and talk about intimidating, man.
Oh
where
my
you've
gosh.
got this room full of world-class players, and not to mention I'm playing piano, but Gordon Motes over here playing B3 organ, like next to me.
Good God Almighty.
And so that was intimidating. But man, I tell you what, he encouraged me so much that day, and not only him, but all the other guys too. I still think after that first day, I still think he gave me probably the greatest, what I consider the most valuable compliment that I've ever gotten.
Wow.
From the standpoint of a session player, you know, like what I want to do completely full time for a living. At that time, I was 22 years old, and he told me after that first day, he said, "Man, it's really amazing to me that you're only 22 years old." He said, "Because you play with, how do you phrase it? He said, you play with the pocket and the touch and feel of a session guy that's in his 40s.
Ooh, I got chills.
And
that's such a high compliment.
I nearly cried when he said it.
No,
I mean, I truly did. And
dude,
I tell you what, he's been a real just kind of champion for me. He's he earlier this year, he actually gave me a call to go and sub a session of his that he had on the calendar, but he had to cancel on it because he got called to play on Dan and Shay's new record. So I was like, I will gladly take your spillover work any day of the week.
Yeah.
And he also allowed me to go fill in for him on a concert with the band, the country band Alabama.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So, man, just, and through that, meeting some other session players, and everything here is just word of mouth, you know. And I've learned, as frustrating as it may be, everything kind of has to just happen organically. You really can't force your way into certain circles. I just feel like it comes off disingenuous, and people can smell it from a mile away if you're trying to weasel your way into a certain group of people. I don't know, it's hard to articulate it, but it does kind of just have to organically happen. And I've just been blessed enough to be in the right place at the right time a few times.
Sure. Yeah. It's not just that. Like, it's from being at such a young age and wanting to work so hard to practice and having 2 piano teachers at the same time, and just wanting to work at that, and then getting out there with Steve Ladd, and then having Fowler call and be like, you being like, no, it's not time yet. That's kind of crazy to me. I would be like, screw college, bro. Like, this is my dream. Let's do it right now. But like, have the presence of mind to be like, well, it's not time.
And I can't take full credit for that. I had people in my corner that really kind of gave me some good advice, because what I didn't mention earlier was after my freshman year of college, I almost quit.
Oh, wow.
I almost quit and went on the road full time with another Southern Gospel group.
I didn't know that.
Because I went and filled in with them over the summer, just kind of bridged the transition. They had somebody leave, and they said, hey, we know you're in school, but just for your summer, do you want to go out with us and just kind of help us transition until we find somebody? And once I got out there, they kind of started planting the seeds of, man, you know, would you want to just do it, you know? And I really came close to doing it. And hindsight being 2020, I think I absolutely made the right decision by holding off. But like I said, I can't take full responsibility for that. I had some people in my corner that were there to say, look, I know that at this time you're the 19-year-old kid that sees like, hey, this is one of my dreams. I'll get to play on the road and get paid for it. You know?
Nuts.
but they were able to give me some perspective, and I think for whatever reason they saw something in me, and the thing that they kept telling me was just, I think that there's just better. There's better for you. I don't want you to sell yourself short to this and get stuck in a situation like that. I just think so I can't take full credit and say that I was, I had the forethought to, be wise and hold off.
Sure.
But I guess thankfully I was wise enough to listen.
No, yeah. Going back to what you do now, like you're doing a bunch of session work, but also you're doing some like production stuff and some assisting stuff. How did that start? Like, what made you interested in that lane?
It really started when I was in college, because truth be told, I did not go to college for the degree.
Sure.
I did not go for the piece of paper that you get after you spend 4 years. I knew that, well, for one, I wasn't going to be out a ton of money. I had a good scholarship.
Yeah.
I knew that it bought me time. I had 4 years to work on my craft.
Yeah.
The relationships that I built there, the experiences, just the knowledge that you acquired. That's what I was paying for.
Totally.
And I happened to, I majored in music industry studies with an emphasis in production.
Okay.
So
cool.
I was in the campus studio at Bethel all the time.
Yeah.
Learned Pro Tools, learned how to, just a lot of the production things. I was always interested in that just because really anything music production, studio related, it's always piqued my interest. And so me and a buddy of mine, we were the nerds that sat in our dorm room and was like, man, let's learn how to tune vocals. Let's learn how to edit drums. Let's learn how to, but we were obsessed with that, and so that's where a lot of that knowledge came from. Just being there in school, having certain people around you. That technical director, Daniel, that I mentioned earlier. There were a few times where I would just go to his office and say, hey, I need to, here's what I need to accomplish. I need to get, 3 background vocals recorded this weekend. What would be the best workflow for me in terms of, we would take the deep dive into the nerdy stuff. But having those people there like that, and honestly, a lot of it just being self-taught too, just going in there and screwing something up. So then for the next time. So I wouldn't trade those 4 years for anything. Those were very, very influential.
Yeah. And so you get here and then you find someone who's willing to take you on as like a mentee, assistant person. How, if I wanted to get into production, how do I meet someone like that? How did you do it?
I guess it kind of goes back to the organic thing that I was mentioning earlier. I didn't seek this out. I just happened to be, it's really a crazy story if I got all the way into it, but I just happened to be around this guy that I'm working with a lot now. His name's Michael Sykes. I was there at the studio that day. I wasn't even really a part of what was going on, but I was just kind of there. And for whatever reason, me and him we just kind of hit it off, and ended up getting his number. And I waited a few weeks or so, but I just got to thinking about it. And one thing I'll say is this. Even though you do want things to organically happen, that doesn't mean you can't take initiative.
Preach.
Because I have always been shy and timid to approach people and ask them.
I feel that.
Ask them anything.
Yeah.
But I have been really surprised since I've been here in Nashville at how many people are really cool about it and will just simply say yes. I mean, the fact that, I would reach out to somebody and just say, hey, you may not be into this and that's totally okay, but could I possibly just come and watch you work one day? Like, can I just be a fly on the wall while you do your thing? Or just, hey, I'd love to have lunch with you sometime. I'd love to buy you a coffee. I'd love to, whatever, fill in the blank. And 99.9% of the time, it has been, yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Let's do it.
Yeah. It's that easy.
Right.
Just ask.
Yeah.
You have not because you ask not.
Exactly. And I think the worst that can happen is they tell me no.
Yeah.
And then that's the same result as just not asking at all.
Yeah.
So what do you really have to lose?
You're so right. Good Lord, you're right. I mean, that's kind of how I ended up where I am. I asked a guy who worked in A&R in his office one day, my first time meeting him. We're just sharing stories, and at the end of the meeting, I was like, hey, would you mind being my mentor? I would never do that again, probably. Like, I was outside of my body when I asked that question. Because
there was a reason.
I'm the same way. I'm like, so...
I don't believe in coincidences now. I truly don't. I really don't.
I'm so timid, and like, especially then, I didn't have the confidence I have now. But to say those words, and for him to say like, yeah, I can make time for that. It was just like, oh my good Lord, that's crazy. And it worked out for me.
Yeah, man. I think that is, that's huge. And I'm glad that, and I still have to talk myself into that sometimes.
Same.
But it's an ongoing battle for people like us
It'll
that are
never
just
go
more
away
passive.
For me.
But yeah, I'm glad that I did do that.
Yeah. Well, dude, let's take another quick break. We're almost there.
Yeah, let's do it.
We'll see you in a second. Welcome back. We are headed on the road again. Good Lord.
After a very religious experience.
We may have bought everything they had. I think we got one of everything.
We don't make the rules. That's just part of it.
Gosh, but it's so delicious. We just chowed down on the brisket sandwich, which is sent from heaven above.
Yeah. Texas cheesesteak burrito,
which
had, was delectable.
And I grabbed the wrong one. I wish I'd not messed that up, but it's okay. Yeah, for those who don't know what Buc-ee's is, it's kind of like a gas station mixed with a Walmart, kind of. And people will come here just for the food or anything else other than gas.
Basically what we did today.
Exactly what we did today, pretty much. And it's great.
Yeah, it was worth it. It was worth the drive over here.
I agree. And now we're going to get into the questions, which I tried to do in the store and forgot to hit record. So it's okay. Like, it was so loud in there. It's probably better this way anyway. Question 1. Do you remember when we first met and what you thought about me?
So I don't remember like the exact day or scenario per se, but I do know that it was around 2014. I was a freshman in high school, and my cousin and yourself and a few other of y'all's friends had moved into this house in Jacksonville together, and I just know I started kind of coming around and hanging out with Adam there at the house, and so obviously we started spending some time together there.
Yeah. It's always interesting when someone else is like, that you're friends with, so me and Adam are already friends, and they're like, hey, can I bring another friend along?
Right.
But also even weirder in this case, like, hey, can I bring my younger cousin?
Right.
Like, we were...
From y'all's perspective, I can't even imagine.
So I was a little nervous. I was like, what can I say around this guy? And thankfully it won't be in the show, but we were making a lot of comments about the brisket sandwich that should never be spoken. And we just have a wonderfully inappropriate like language relationship. But yeah, starting there was like, man, can I be myself around this guy? He's so young, but like seems cool, I guess. And the fact that you and Adam were so tight, I don't have that close a relationship with any of my cousins. So I was like, this is interesting. But then you came over once and a couple times, and it was like, okay, yeah, what we would do is just sit around the TV and just watch YouTube videos or Vines even.
Vines, yes!
And people just singing or playing something crazy and just like connecting over that.
Now that you bring that up, I have vivid memories of us watching Avery Wilson Vines.
Oh my goodness. Ooh.
That man, my gosh, what a singer, what a talent.
One of my favorite vocalists for sure.
Yeah, one thing I did say in the store is that I felt like me and you, as far as me with the other people there at the house, I don't know, I felt like me and you hit it off faster.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I always seemed like I was drawn more to you. I just felt like, I was like, yeah, this is good people. Like,
well, thank you. Appreciate it. Let's go on to question 2. How do you feel about our relationship now?
Man, the thing that I love the most about our relationship now is that even though we don't really, we don't see each other on would you say it's a regular basis? Maybe somewhat.
Semi-regular, especially for an adult relationship.
Yeah, yes. That's fair.
Yeah.
But what I love is no matter when it is, like today, for example, when's the last time that we hung out?
Maybe 2.5, 3 months.
Yeah, so 2.5, 3 months, and as soon as you showed up, it's just tomfoolery right out of the gate. It just immediately picks back up. And I know that's a cliche, but I really do mean it. Like, I love that.
Yeah. Like I was also saying in the store, like when you moved here in 2022, we hung out maybe a couple months after that. And you were saying like, man, I want to find some community. Like, I don't know a lot of people here, but all the people I am connected with, it's kind of a work thing.
Right.
And I thought like, dude, I would love to hang out more. Like, you're so close to me. We lived like 10 minutes apart at the time.
We did.
That's when like the once a month thing started.
Yeah. Usually at Waldo's.
Yes. Praise God.
What a great establishment.
Such good chicken tenders.
Yeah. The sauces.
How could I forget? But yeah, I was like, man, like it's so rare that you move to Nashville and you have a built-in friend base. Like, people there already.
Yeah, somebody that you knew that's not from there.
Totally.
Somebody that's from home,
So yeah, I wanted to try and connect as much as we could because I felt like, geez, I wouldn't want you to feel like you're doing well on paper here, but maybe the community isn't where you wanted it to be, and that would burn you out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's when we just started hanging out a lot more. No, you're fine. Yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I'm still in the process of finding that consistent community because, we do get busy and you develop friends and acquaintances like within your work, but it is important to be able to have those people that, like, hey, it's a Friday evening, there's nothing going on, like, let's go eat some Waldo's chicken, like, and for no other reason, just to go and hang out.
Yeah.
There's no angle to it. There's no agenda. There's no, it's just, we're just hanging out. And I love that. I feel that's a big deal to me when I'm around people that I feel like I can just, like, I don't have to be on.
No, yeah, totally.
So.
Yeah, man. Okay, number 3. How can I be a better friend to you?
What? Dude, you literally texted me a few days ago asking if I was in town so you could bring cookies to me. How can I be a better friend to you, sir?
Oh, man. I did do that, yes.
Dude, like...
yeah, for those of you who don't know, every year around Thanksgiving time, I bake white chocolate cranberry cookies. And I bake a lot of them. This year it was close to 250, which is nuts.
Wow.
Yes. And I started doing this because growing up, my mom would bake cookies. She'd make oatmeal chocolate chip, and everyone freaking loved them. And she'd make them and pass them out. So I thought, like, I could do that, but I don't love oatmeal chocolate chip. What's a recipe that I could do that people might also enjoy? So I came across the white chocolate cranberry recipe. I loved it. Started maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. And I just keep making more and more each year because I'll make a big batch, I'll freeze some of them, and then I'll bake them and just take them to the people around Nashville. Friends, just anyone I think who might enjoy them.
So I'm assuming if you're continuing to do that and you're doing, like you said, more and more, is that the process of doing that, of baking the cookies, do you enjoy that? Or is it more of just this is a means to do something kind for friends, or do you enjoy the process?
It's definitely more on the side of this is the means to show love and give something to friends.
Okay.
I enjoy the process when I get it right. And I feel like I only get it right maybe after the first 50. Like this year, I bought a new pan, one that's bigger that I wanted to make more cookies on, and I sent it to you, and I was so fired up about it.
You were.
Just making more at once, and that kind of tripped me up. I should have altered the timing.
That can mess with the ratio of I get
So the first batch was underdone. I was like, crap. And I was just going to throw them away. And this was like 36 cookies. And my roommate who tried it was like, I really like these. Maybe you don't throw them away. So I was like, okay, I'll keep them. After that, I overbaked the next batch. And that was like, geez, what am I doing? But the next day, I was like, okay, I'm dialed in 12 and a half minutes for all of them. I know what I'm doing. And the rest of them, like the next 150, were all flawless. So that's amazing. Yeah, let's go.
I'll tell you what, man. I'm wanting to get more into cooking, and I mean like cooking well. You know, I really want to kind of hone that skill because I don't cook a ton, but what I do, I really do enjoy it. Like there's something really calming, really relaxing about just getting in the kitchen and doing your thing. I don't know. I enjoy that process. I wish I had a grill. I would love to have a grill.
You should have bought one at Buc-ee.
They sure did have some, didn't they?
They did. Oh my gosh, it's great. Okay, we're moving through these because I can see where we're going to arrive at your place, so I want to make sure we get through them all. Question number 4. What matters most to you right now?
Wow. Just, I mean, in general? Oh, I mean,
yeah.
Wow.
I have an answer if you want to.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of dead space here. You'll have to cut out. Sorry.
No, it's okay. My answer, and I try not to think about these before going into a record, but this time I just found myself thinking about this question. So like, you know what? Let me write this down. It's recognizing all the things I have to be thankful for.
Amen. Amen.
And maybe part of that is Thanksgiving is literally around the corner.
I was going to say, very fitting time for that.
Yeah. But just like, man, how blessed am I with the job I have, the friendships I have.
Yes.
Even the family and like, even the day and age in which I live. Like, you know how great it is to have indoor plumbing, bro? It's come on.
All of the things that you would never just even think about. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just so thankful for the little things, the big things, all the things. So like focusing on that matters a lot to me. And it keeps me from feeling down on myself or situations around me. Keeps me from being depressed. It's like, man, what can I pick out that I'm grateful for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not to completely just totally piggyback off of your basic answer, but you know, over this past weekend, I really was having a lot of those same thoughts because I just finished up, just checked a few things off of the list that that were really stressful, were very tiring days, very long days.
Yeah.
Very stressful days. I was not looking forward to them going into it. I feel very much a sense of relief that they're over with. But during that process, my parents got to come up to town for a few days, and some of my extended family, a couple of family friends of theirs, got to come up too. So just the fact that they were able to be here with me while I was working, and yes, it is work, but still, like, man, we have really cool jobs.
Yeah,
we
man.
really do. I mean, when you really zoom out and think, what we could be doing, I mean, we have really cool jobs. That's all I know how to say.
Yeah.
And the fact that they got to be there and really see a lot of the look behind the curtain, a lot of the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I'm very thankful that they got to be there. I'm very thankful for them in general. They've done so much and gave so much to set me up and give me opportunities to succeed, and very thankful for how I was raised. And I don't know, I'm just I was thinking over the weekend about, man, even though that was stressful, even though I am glad it's over, when you really kind of zoom out and take a look back at it, I'm going, man, we really do have it pretty good.
Yeah. We do. I feel like everyone wants our job, especially in the music industry. But even people who aren't trying to be in the music industry, if they hear about what we do, they're like, oh, whoa, that's crazy. Because like, there's so many hard jobs out there, whether physically or mentally, and it can get that way in what we do, but for the most part, it's pretty great.
It definitely can, and it, I think with almost anything in life, when you do it for a job, it does over time start to lose some of that, some of that magic and some of the, like the childlike wonder that you have about, like seeing a musician on the stage or whatever. But it, like I said, in the grand scheme of things, when you really zoom out, two things can be true. One, it is still a job. It is still work. It's not like you're on vacation every day. And there are a lot of people that do think that, and that could not be further from the truth. Like when you're on a tour bus, it's not vacation every day. But then again, I could easily be on the side of the road digging a ditch, and I'm thankful for the people that do that,
Absolutely.
And I just, we have a lot to be thankful for, man. So much.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to question 5. What are you holding on to that's holding you back? Let's talk about it.
Oh man, I don't know if I want to
I
on
think
this forum.
We should.
On this forum, I don't know, man.
I think we should. People might relate. I say that, audience. I don't know what he's going to say. But still, the truth remains. People might relate.
Well, one thing that me and you talk about often is just the ongoing battle. And I tell you what, to probably several people, it's going to sound, I don't know, it might sound silly, it might sound, but just the ongoing struggle with, man, like I should really be making much healthier choices in my life in regards to diet and exercise and just taking care of my body. And I do think that is one thing that holds myself and several people back, even people that may not look overweight,
Sure.
but I think we neglect. I mean, if we think of ourselves, our bodies as a machine or as a tool,
Yeah.
it's like, man, we really do neglect ourselves very often.
Yeah.
And I do often think, man, how much more efficient could I be? How much more productive could I be? How much more energy would I have to accomplish X, Y, and Z
Yeah.
if I were in much more optimal health?
Sure.
You know? So that is definitely something that holds me back, and it's a vulnerable thing to share, but it's the truth.
I was hoping we would get here, but I didn't want to steer it there intentionally because I don't know. At least to me, that felt like it could have been disingenuous. But you're right. We talk about it a lot every time we hang out. Just like struggles with weight and appearance, and how that affects us, how we think it affects other people's view of us.
Yeah.
It's freaking hard, man. And I've felt so insecure about it for so long. Even like, I think it started for me when I was like maybe like 10 years old, which is so young, to have any sort of like body image issues. That's, a child shouldn't have to think about that, but there I was, whatever. Because I think we went to the beach and I just felt uncomfortable. It's like, and I wasn't that large of a child, especially not at 10, but I still just felt like I shouldn't take my shirt off here. People might look at me and laugh at me. And I looked like a normal kid.
Yeah.
But I still had that mindset. So since then...
Where do you think that stems from? What made that begin for you?
It's probably a bit of nature and nurture. Probably just like societal views on attractiveness and seeing that growing up and thinking, oh, I don't match that. I'm ugly, or I'm different. I'm not the same. So I should stay covered. I should be myself. Maybe some of it just being around kids. Maybe someone did make fun of a larger child. It might have been me. I don't remember. Just like, oh, geez, I kind of look like them. Like if they think they're fat, they want to make fun of them, then I should be ashamed of myself, obviously. So yeah, I've had that. I've struggled with that for so long. I mean, I'm 28 now, 18 years. Goodness gracious, that's awful.
Yeah.
But it's always been prevalent. And like you're saying, I could make healthier choices, and I should, not including today.
Right.
But
same here.
Oh my gosh, it's just, there's so much difficulty and so many head games that I play with myself.
Yeah. And you know what's really crazy to me? Gosh, this is deep.
Let's go.
This is incredibly vulnerable. I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud, but
okay.
As we've talked about before, back in 2020, over the course of about 6 months, half a year, I lost around 62, 63 pounds or something like that.
Yeah.
And even when I was at the lowest weight as an adult, even then, don't get me wrong, I did feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
I felt a little more confident, but the mind games, that never completely went away.
Yeah.
I was still, and don't get me wrong, I still had more weight to lose. Like I probably still could have stood to, maybe drop even some more, but I look back, in retrospect, and it's like, but I remember just even during that time period, I still felt the same way. I still struggled with the same feelings. Now I was starting to turn a corner. I was starting to get there. Yeah. I remember a few times there were a couple of events in particular that I remember. That's just how I signify them in my memory.
Yeah.
I remember a few different days where I kind of went throughout the day and then realized afterwards, like, wow, I never really even gave it a thought. I wasn't concerned about, how I looked in this particular set of clothes or how I, and I was just starting to turn that corner. But I think that's something that, hey, even if somebody loses, a ton of weight, in a very short period of time, the mind games behind it, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
And I think that just takes time.
It does. It takes a lot of practice having a healthier mindset.
Yes.
And practice can be hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to consciously think, okay, I'm normal. Even something like as simple as that for me is just like, I'm a normal guy and this is my body. Even saying those words would be progress from the way I currently think. And now it's gotten so bad because I've been negative on myself for 18 years that it's just ingrained in my brain. It's already conditioned there. So to try and combat that with a different thought process takes a lot of work. Just like, it's mentally strenuous.
Right. And
to tell yourself that.
It's ingrained. It's normal to us, and, even if, like in my case, over the course of half a year, even though I dropped a significant amount of weight, it's like my mind it hasn't caught up. It hasn't broke the habit of, and it was beginning to, but so that's, man. And another thing that I look at myself, and I know we're still young.
Sure.
We are still young, but man, me, like, I'm, 25 years old, and I think, gosh, I really don't want to still be struggling with this as I approach my 30s and as so.
Yeah, and on my mom's side of the family, they're all like maybe a little overweight, so I've got those genes. And then my dad's side, almost everyone has diabetes, so I've got those genes.
I've got a lot of that.
So a lot is working against me. It would take double the effort, mentally and physically, and double the discipline to continue in a routine that would get me down 60 pounds.
Yeah.
At my worst, I think I was around like 320, 324. This was maybe, 4 years ago. I've been hovering around 275 the past 3 years, which is so interesting. I don't really gain or lose anything easily. I'm just stagnant, and it's kind of annoying. But like 250 has always been my realistic goal. It's like, dude, 250, it's right there. 250 is right there around the corner. I could hit that. But good Lord, I haven't hit it. And not that having like the goal weight is the healthy way to look. I don't know, whatever. But I know it would do a lot for me mentally to see that number.
Well, it's just a marker of progress is all it is. But I am with you in the sense that, man, I'm not concerned. Like, I'm really not concerned with the number on the scale. It's so much more just about how can I better improve my quality of life to be more efficient, more productive, more just improved, in every area.
Yeah.
So
I think part of the struggle with having a goal weight is the goalposts will continue to move.
Right.
So like you'll be like, okay, I'm at 250, let's go to 225.
Right.
And you could get to 225 and maybe you're still not happy then. Like, oh no, like this was supposed to be the thing that fixed everything else in my life.
Right.
It was my biggest struggle for so long. Now what? And granted, I haven't gotten there yet, but like I can envision myself getting there and being like, shoot, this wasn't the thing.
Right. Almost thinking that everything in life will be fixed. Yes. Everything will be better if I can check this box. Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know, man. And like even when I was married, struggling with feeling attractive in that relationship was difficult. But you also have that safety and security of like, oh, I found my person maybe I don't have to try as hard anymore. Like, I know that they love me and they find me attractive. Like, okay, woo, we're safe.
Right.
When you're on the open market, still thinking of the like ideal male beauty standards, like I don't match that. So like, do I have to get there and for someone to be like, oh, they're a good potential suitor?
Well, and I'll add to that by saying, for me, it's not even necessarily that I have to fit this particular standard.
Sure.
But really, it's more just whoever I end up marrying eventually, if that time comes, I want to be the absolute best version of me
Totally.
that I can be for them.
Yeah.
And that's a high goal. I mean,
it is.
It's one that we should all strive for.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, there's a good way, a healthy way, and an unhealthy way to look at. You know, I guess it's all about your motivating factor.
Yeah.
One thing I hear people say a lot is like, you have to have a very strong why.
Sure.
If your why is completely, for completely just vain reasons.
Yeah, sure.
And that may work for people, and it may, but I feel like for a lot of people, you have to have something even further than that.
Yeah.
If it's just all completely for the selfish reason, if I can say that.
Yeah.
Like I said, that can still work for some people, but
yeah.
But I do think it's healthy to have something beyond that.
Yeah. And I love getting with you and talking about it. And sometimes I'll text you after a really good day or a really debaucherous day.
Yeah.
It's like, dude.
And we have done both.
We have done both.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, dude. Like, I went off the deep end today. And the other one of us will be like, well, I can top that. Here's what I just did. It's helpful to have that camaraderie with someone I know who understands.
Yes.
So having each other in that regard is awesome.
Absolutely. Man, you were the only person that I talk about this kind of stuff with. I'm being dead serious.
Same.
I don't breathe a word about this to anyone else, really. And
same.
Honestly, can't believe I'm saying a lot of this out loud on the record.
Sure.
But,
there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about it.
I would say the same for me.
It's weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully one day we'll be free to think about other things, occupy that space with maybe more productive or healthier thoughts. But like, it's just ever present.
You're exactly right. And it's just, man, it's difficult.
It
really
difficult.
is. And I don't know. I'm hoping and praying that I'll be able to get on top of that.
Yeah.
And have the discipline and have the want to remain consistent in those areas.
Yeah. We have both tried the carnivore diet. I heavily enjoyed it. You enjoyed it as well. And it showed some progress for me.
Definitely.
At least in the place that I wanted to see it. So like the number on the scale was going down. Mm-hmm. And it had only been maybe 3.5, 4 weeks that I was on it, and then I got off.
Right.
But that was encouraging. Other than like the weight loss, I didn't really see or feel any other drastic changes that a bunch of people who try that diet feel. But the main thing that I wanted to see happened. So that's incentive enough for me to want to try it again.
It's proof that it's achievable.
Yeah.
It's...
But
for me, the number on the scale was going down also, but I could tell a pretty drastic difference just in how I felt in the day-to-day. Now, obviously, food addiction, just like any addiction, I mean, that it takes a while to completely break a habit and form a new healthy one. So, it is it is tough to just remain faithful to what you're doing, because you know what I'm really bad about, and we've talked about this before, I'm really bad about having the feast or famine mindset.
Absolutely,
where
yes.
you know, where say I've been in the middle of a streak of making incredible choices, doing a really good job, and then maybe, you know, at lunchtime I slip up and I'm in some kind of situation and it's like, okay, well, I went off the rails a little bit here.
Yeah.
Well, instead of just immediately for dinner going back to what I'm supposed to do, I have a tough time not just saying, well, I already screwed up, so I may as well just indulge, tonight.
Yeah.
And that's a tough mindset for me to remember.
Yeah. I was just thinking about, was it earlier this week or last week when I texted you, like, dude, I just felt like such a little piggy today. And I had a huge lunch and I overdid it, but it was so good. I was just like, oh man, what am I doing? But yeah, moments like that where it's just like, we can make light of it. We can talk about it seriously.
Yeah.
But like either way, we know we have each other. And in the good stretches, like maybe one of us will have a great day and just want to share that.
I was going to say, dude, there have been times where maybe I wasn't having the best, string of days. And then, you send me a text and say, man, like, I've just absolutely killed it today. Like I did X, Y, and Z, And then it's like it's happened multiple times where you've said that. And then it inspires me to say, you know what, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go move around. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to go to the gym. It's just, so like, that's important. That's good.
Definitely.
That's good camaraderie to have.
Absolutely. And whenever you text me a good or bad thing, it's never like, oh no, I'm not doing well. It's healthy motivation.
Right.
Either way. It's like, okay, yeah, Garrett's crushing it today. I could do that too. Like, even if I had a weird or a very large indulgent breakfast or lunch, it's like, you know what, there's still time to make a good choice today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, thanks for sharing all that. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Hello, welcome back. Still driving. How you doing so far, Garrett?
Man, what a great day. Like, truly, we've got to hang up. We've got to hang out, catch up. That's what I meant. Hang out and catch up.
Yes.
And we got to go to Buc-ee's.
Amen.
So, and it's beautiful. It's nice and cool out.
Yes, thank God. It's just like 30. It's like 38 degrees in Tennessee, and it's so wonderful. I love the cold so much.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, man, I'm having a great day.
I love it.
So I don't know about you.
And you were so nervous. I knew you'd be great. Okay, let's move on. Question number 5. Nope, not true. Number 6. When was the last time you made yourself proud?
Oh, wow.
I've got a good one.
Go ahead.
Okay,
I want to hear yours.
At the end of the year, every year at Centricity, all the employees have to do like an employee review with their direct supervisor. And with my boss, he sends us the forms. Usually we'll talk about like, what do we want to do next year? You have any goals for next year? But part of this review process is you yourself as the employee, you have to write down how you've grown this year. And I have a very hard time looking into the past and to the future. So for me, this is always very difficult. I have to think back like, okay, good Lord, what did I want? What were my goals for this year? Did I do those? Maybe I can write some of that down. What even happened this year? I've just been kind of having my head down, just getting the work done. I haven't really stopped to look up and appreciate something or remember that for later. So when I was racking my brain trying to write down all the ways I've grown this year, I actually came across some things. I was like, okay, yeah, I did that. And And I was like, okay, yeah, I did that too. And I just was like, man, look at me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm growing. And like, this was mainly work stuff to write down, but I was also thinking of like personal stuff. Like, man, I'm a year and a half outside of divorce and like feeling really good about my life and who I am and still becoming who I am and finding that, but figuring out what I love and who I love and who I want to spend time with, doing this show, like having such a big creative venture that I've never done before in my life feels good to have my name on something. There was just so much growth in the past year. I was like,
Yeah.
this is awesome. I'm proud of myself for taking some chances and figuring out new ways to live.
Yeah. I tell you what, man, over the last handful of weeks, the guy who I've been working alongside, kind of doing some assisting with, Michael Sykes, I mentioned him earlier. He had a project come in, and I promise there's something deeper to this. I'll get to it, but
Okay.
so he had a project come along, and he really decided on this go around that he's kind of giving me the reins a little bit more
Yeah.
than he would as a producer. He's really kind of entrusted me with a good bit of responsibility,
Yeah.
to where I'm almost kind of co-producing the record with him. And he hired me to be the session leader for when we recorded the songs. He had me hire the band.
Yeah.
He had me
That's cool.
So he kind of put a lot of responsibility on me, even really let me kind of run with a lot of the arrangement things. He's really there in kind of an overseer
Yeah.
position, but in terms of, all of the getting down and dirty and getting into the nitty gritties, he's kind of just put a lot of that on my shoulders. And I tell you what, having those 2 to 3 days with all of those, I mean, man, all these other musicians in the room have been doing for a living what I want to do.
Yeah.
And they've been doing it for longer than I've been alive. These are all like seasoned veterans, and it's an honor for me to even be in the room with them.
Yeah.
And not only was I in the room with them, I was the session leader. So I I was kind of the last word on everything. Everyone looked towards me for the final decision on most things,
Yeah.
I kind of ran the ship, just kept things moving, was in charge of communicating what the artist wanted and did not want, and what I wanted and did not want. And, people like us that are naturally more timid don't enjoy coming in and kind of just owning the room.
Yes.
And I tell you what, man, having 2 full days of that, and some of the guys I had worked with before, but some of them I had not.
Yeah.
And for the ones that I had not worked with before, getting to do that and watching me, and everyone was a dream, like from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
But still, watching the subtle shift in some of those guys that did not know me.
Yeah.
And I think about it from their perspective, who's this young punk, coming in and running the show. And just watching how I felt like I started to really gain their respect just as the days went on, and how, man, by the end of it, I felt like any one of those guys, I feel like they would have ran through a brick wall for me if they, if I would have asked them to.
Yeah.
And
you should have next time.
And, well,
yeah.
And man, I had to, that was something I had to take a step back and go, okay, I'm kind of proud of myself for for one, even saying yes
Yeah.
to the responsibility of all of that stuff,
Yeah.
but also kind of stepping into that role. And because I've always had a really big admiration for just good leaders,
Yeah.
and in any sense of the word,
Yeah.
no matter what that leader is or is doing.
Yeah.
But I've always had such a respect for people that can just walk in and just kind of command
Mhm.
the room. And you know what I'm talking
I
about, when
do.
somebody comes in and you can just feel,
Yeah.
okay, we're looking to this person. And I've always admired that position, but have never felt comfortable with the idea of being that person.
Yes.
And over those few days, I finished up and I thought, you know what? I think for a 25-year-old punk, I think I did okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You're right. I'm not usually the first person to gravitate toward being the leader in the room,
Yeah.
and I'm not necessarily an Enneagram person, but the number of
Number 9?
Yes, I'm a number 9.
Me too.
But I am like even on both sides. Like you have wings. Are you a 9 wing 1 or a 9 wing 8?
Yeah, I think I'm more of a wing 1.
Yeah, I'm definitely even with both. So like I could be the leader in a room if I need to be.
Yeah.
I for sure give everyone else the space. If there's another natural born leader in there, like go ahead and take it, and I'll
Right.
follow. I love following. It's great. But if no one speaks up, I could be like, okay, yeah, let's do this, and that.
Right.
And I think that helps, especially like in my job where sometimes you're the authority on a situation that you didn't know was you were going to be the authority on.
Definitely.
And you have to have a snap decision that hopefully is measured. I can do that.
Well, I tell you what, one thing that I've always struggled with is the fact that I'm the same way. I would prefer somebody to come in
Totally.
and take the reins.
Yeah.
I'm generally more comfortable in the follower position, but one thing that I've had to be careful of is knowing the scenarios that it is okay, that it is socially acceptable for me to step into that leadership role.
Yeah.
Because at least in this industry, sometimes I found myself in situations before where, okay, something's going on and I feel like I have the solution. I feel like I could easily rectify whatever's happening.
Yeah.
But I know who the leader in that room is. They are older than me.
Yeah.
That's who everyone is looking towards. And unless I'm specifically asked, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to insert myself and it kind of goes back to the, the hierarchy of, what am I looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? Is that the right word?
Sure.
Just the, the chain of command.
There you go.
There we go. So yeah, I think being able to do that, but also having the ability to read the room and have the social awareness to know, okay, it's appropriate here for me to step into that, or it's not.
Yeah, definitely. That's good. Okay, we're going to move on. Question 7. What was the last piece of art you consumed that inspired you?
Well, I will say this kind of opens up a can of worms.
Okay.
I need to be more intentional about doing that.
Oh, okay.
Because right off the top of my head, I truly can't remember.
Yeah.
And I feel like because what we do for a living is artistic in nature, it, like everything else, it becomes a job.
Yes.
And so then during my free time, usually I'm not insistent on listening to music.
Yeah.
Or there's even times I'm just like, man, I really don't want to watch a movie. I don't want to watch TV. I don't, like anything artistic in nature. I don't really want to do.
Yeah.
So, but I do need to be more intentional about that because it is important to stay inspired.
Yeah, definitely.
And I need to be better about that.
Okay. I do have an answer, and it's definitely a shout out to Adam Smith. The record Be the Change by Jared Lawson, which he sent to both of us maybe 2.5, 3 months ago.
I was going to say, not too long ago.
And I have not listened to a record like this that has changed my brain chemistry in a long time.
Wow, that's a big statement.
It's that good to me. It's like an R&B, jazz, soul record. This guy Jared, he's from the Pacific Northwest, and he's playing keys and doing all the vocals on all the songs for this record, and it is stupendous. I mean, good Lord. It's everything I've wanted in this season of my life. So like dipping back into R&B stuff that I grew up with, getting more into jazz, and this stuff has a jazzier feel.
Yeah.
Track 6, Why Don't You Call Me Baby Anymore, is it's everything.
It does it for you.
Yes. And then the next track, Evilly, is just reminds me of like some old gospel stuff. Like, man, it is so good. And from an artist I had never ever heard of, probably never would have heard of them if Adam had not sent it to me.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's been a lot of our relationship, you, me, and Adam.
Oh, yeah.
Sending music to each other that we love and feel like, oh, the guys have to hear this. We'll send it off. And then that record ends up changing my life.
Yeah. That's amazing.
It's so good. Oh my gosh. I need to see him live one day.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole record, like if you have the time, just throw it on in the background. This could be a good passive listening record, but also if you're into music and just want to hear something new and fresh, I heavily endorse this record.
Can you listen to music passively?
Not typically.
I can't either.
It kind of sucks.
There are times sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes if music is on passively, it almost bothers me.
Yeah.
It's almost more of a hindrance sometimes. Not always, but yeah, I have a tough time with turning off the switch,
Yes.
That's trying to analyze every single thing.
Preach.
And
it's so funny because like you're an excellent pianist. I wasn't excellent at anything. No, hold on. But I had like just enough like teaching and schooling in some of the things that it has ruined to me. So now I'm listening for like, okay, what scale degree is this? Or like, okay, what chord is this?
Yeah.
Or like, how are they doing that in the keys? Or like, what's that sound that they're doing in production? And yeah, it just gets in the way of enjoying good music.
Yeah, and in regards to that, there are certain albums that I love purely from the musical lens, like the content of what they are performing.
Yeah.
Then there are other records that I love through the production lens, where it may not even necessarily be my favorite music, my favorite style of music, but the mix is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And just different styles of producing, and like trying to get into their headspace and think, why did they make this decision? What led them to do this? So that's cool.
Yeah. And for me, as someone who couldn't take that information and turn it into a song or use my voice to put it in my next song, it's kind of useless. So I'm just listening, and it's just like, it's not quite hitting me right. But I don't have anywhere to take that creative energy and try and do something of my own to either match that or make it my own or be inspired from it in that way. Thankfully, I found this as an outlet to...
I was just about to say, this is... Yeah.
But it's still... I don't know, it just doesn't... Not that it doesn't feel right, but it's not the same, I don't think, to hear something or to see a movie and to be like, I'm going to make a movie too. Instead, for me, it's like, wow, that movie was great. I'm going to make a podcast. They're not the same. It's definitely a response to that creative stimuli. But
it's still inspiration via something that you thought was inspiring, thought was great.
Yeah. How about podcasts? What are some of your favorites of those?
Oh, man. I tell you what, I know I've endorsed this one to you. My favorite podcast. Not currently putting out episodes on a regular basis. Every now and then he may release one. It's called The Sideman Chronicles.
Yeah.
There's a bass player here in town that is a freak of nature, so talented. He has played with people like Michael McDonald, and last year toured with Reba McEntire, and I think he used to tour with Michael W. Smith, and he's been all over. His name's Jacob Lowry. If you Google him, you can see all of the achievements, all the stuff he's played on. But he just sits down and talks with other fellow sidemen and sidewomen, is what they refer to as, just, people that are not the headlining artist, but people that play on the road with them and people that play on their records and have made an entire career out of playing a supportive cast role to make the artist look good and sound good. And obviously, with that being the nature of what I do for a living, that's really very interesting to me.
Yeah.
To hear some of my heroes, that have played on all kinds of hit records and been very successful, and just hear them have dialogue and talk about whatever they talk about. And so that's definitely number one.
Someone I work with, James Duke, was a guest on that show years ago. So I'm sure that episode's still out. Check it out.
It is.
Or check out the whole show.
Yeah.
I've listened to a few episodes. It is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see. What else am I digging these days? I have a couple of sports,
Sure.
just like your typical sports talk shows that I'll listen to. Those are always entertaining during college football season and NFL football season.
Yeah.
There's obviously a whole lot of material to cover.
Yeah.
What about you? What are some of your favorites?
Well, there's a podcast company called HeadGum that has a lot of shows that I enjoy. The main people there are a comedy duo named Jake and Amir, who had a lot of popularity on YouTube in early YouTube days and college humor. So back from 2007 to 2014, pretty much, they made videos once a week, twice a week, and would just put them out and get a bunch of views. They started their own podcast maybe 10, 12 years ago called If I Were You. And that podcast has since ended, but they started a new one called Segments, where each episode is just made up of different segments that they make up for that show, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
And kind of endless in the amount of things they could do in it, so it doesn't get stale.
Right.
One of my favorite podcasters, his name is John Gabris. He's got a couple shows that I like. One named Action Boys, which is he and two other hosts review action movies from the 60s to the 90s, usually for longer than the runtime of the actual movie. And they have great chemistry, super fun. He's got another show called High and Mighty with random guests he brings on to talk about whatever the guest is into. And John's kind of an everyman, so he can at least talk surface level about almost everything. And he's just so freaking funny, dude. Oh, man, I love him.
Do you ever get into any of the true crime stuff?
No, I never did.
I don't either.
Yeah.
And that's crazy, because isn't that the number one
it might still be, yeah,
genre of podcasts that people listen to?
That's for white women. That's not for me.
But I tell you what, I've never even really given it a shot. I
haven't either. But, yeah, you're right.
But I was curious because I know a lot of people are into that.
I mean, I love a good thriller, especially in a movie.
Me too.
So, yeah, it feels like I would enjoy it. I don't know. Okay, let's move along. Question number 8. Who do you know personally that inspires you to be better?
Wow. I feel like there's several answers
I love
for
that.
this.
Okay.
Well, one of the highlights of, what we do for a living, we're constantly exposed and around. So I'll start off in the professional and the work-related sense.
Sure.
We're constantly surrounded by pros, you know, people
Yeah.
that are just exceptional
Yeah.
and go above and beyond at what they do. So for that, I mean, it could literally be, it could be different daily, you know.
Yeah.
I may walk into a recording studio one day and it's like you know, this particular guy or gal is just really bringing it that day. And that's inspiring. And it's, you know, like you said, it inspires you to be better.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be, you know, the weak link holding things back, you know, if you find yourself in a room with other people, you know. I tell you what, in terms of personally, it's, man, a lot of my family members, I mean, Adam Smith is one, my older brother, and my parents, just the way that, especially it's so good when I get to go home and get to go back and, you know, spend Sundays at my home church where I grew up and just see all of those familiar faces and it, you know, I don't know, it just, and so many of these people that I have known for my whole life, and I see how they have changed and how they've developed and how they've grown in their faith and how they've grown as a person. And that's always really refreshing to come back home to and see that. And it's like, I don't know, I feel like it kind of just lifts me, man, seeing that. That's kind of broad, but
no, I like it. I'll answer this question in a second. But did you ever feel like growing up in Alabama, which we grew up maybe 35, 40 minutes from each other, man, I got to make it out of here. Like, nothing really happens here. I'm going to make a name for myself. Or was it just like, I don't know, I'm just going to go and do my thing?
You know what? I never had that.
Yeah.
I was never somebody that was just dying to leave.
Yeah.
In fact, there's many things about home that I still really miss. And if I'm being honest, if I wasn't doing what I'm doing for a living, I would probably still be there.
Yeah.
A guy once told me, though, said, if you want to hunt tigers, you have to go where the tigers are. And so,
I mean, yeah.
You know, I knew what I wanted to do for a living, so I figured at some point I'm going to have to go there, you know, go where the action is. And, you know, I'll say this is one thing that I have been reflecting on lately, and I don't know that I've ever said this directly to my dad, or if he even knows this or realizes this.
Okay.
But not long ago, I got to thinking about how when I was freshman, sophomore, junior, senior in high school, I never really, I guess I just thought that I would go to school and study something normal and do a normal job, you know, and that music would just be a hobby and an outlet for me. And I remember as college was starting to approach, my dad, who is not a man of, you know, many words. He's one of those, he doesn't have necessarily a ton to say, but but when he does, it's, you know, you listen. And I just remember my dad, which at the time it seemed a little more strange. He always seemed more adamant about, man, you might want to consider, like, you know, you don't have to go to school and get a business degree, or you don't have to go and study something medically related, or you don't have, like, have you thought about, like, doing the music thing or what? I feel like he was the one that really started the process of even planting the seeds in my mind that maybe I could actually do that.
Yeah.
And I think especially considering that my older brother being as talented as he is, and the fact that, you know, I'm no more talented than he is.
Sure.
And the fact that after high school and stuff, he just went the route of doing a normal job.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I guess it's like it never really occurred to me that maybe I possibly could do something outside of that.
Yeah.
And it's not that anybody was, you know, suppressing that or holding me down. I didn't really personally know anyone that had done it. So
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, yes.
And I need to get over.
We're merging, everyone. We're merging.
Yeah.
Trying to get off.
So he was the one that really started to plant those seeds in my head. And then I started talking with some of the people that I knew that were already like some of the staff members at Bethel in that music department that I was going to be in.
Yeah.
And really and then, like I said, when I was a senior in high school, having the call from Legacy 5 asking about if I wanted to join with them.
Yeah.
You know, before I even went to college. And I think that's when the wheels really started turning, and I started to think, maybe I could do this.
Maybe you could.
Maybe I could, you know, do it and not starve to death. You know, be able to make some money. And I tell you what, I'm really, really, really thankful for that, because who knows, man? I mean, and I try to remember too, just in general, how big of a deal it is just to be an encouragement to somebody along the way.
Preach.
Because he may not even remember
Yeah.
that he did that. And I really should probably tell him this at some point soon. You know, I don't want to regret never saying it.
Yeah.
But
Man.
just that simple notion of, man, like, have you thought about, I mean, that very well may have changed the trajectory of my life.
Jeez.
I mean, there's no way to know for sure, but
yeah.
I can't help but think that might have played a part in it.
Yeah. It's so funny. I didn't have anyone to push me toward the industry stuff. I was just like, I think I'm going to transfer schools and study music business. And I think at the time I was like, maybe get into management or A&R or something. And I was just on my own. Like you were saying, like I didn't have any family who was already in the business. I didn't have any friends who were already there. It was just like, maybe this thing exists. Maybe I could study up on it and do it for a living. I'll just try. But if someone was in my corner, like, have you thought about this? I see this in you. You should maybe work on it. Like maybe it leads somewhere, maybe it doesn't. But I want to encourage that in you. Even just lightly, just like a small tap.
Yeah.
That goes such a long way.
Well, let me ask you this. So one thing that on the Sideman Chronicles, Jacob Lowry always asks his guest, and I'm curious.
Yeah.
He always asks, kind of like you said, was there someone along the way that really kind of encouraged you? But equally, did you ever have anyone that in your mind you thought of like they were a motivating? It was almost like, I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to show them that I can do. So, did you ever have that person?
Never.
I don't think I did either.
I don't operate like that. I know a lot of people do. They are fueled by spite and that drives them.
Right.
That's not me. I don't think I'm a very driven person in general. And that is not to say I don't do good work or I'm not excited about things, but I'm just not that driven. I just do things because they should be done.
Okay.
I don't know. But yeah, never had that.
Yeah, I don't think I necessarily had that either. But I was curious.
No, that's a great question. I love that he asked that. But I think there were some influences for sure in other things. So like the guy I was saying I talked to at Capitol, John Sell, having him as a mentor, let me see like, maybe I could make my way into the industry through connections. Like maybe I don't need a degree.
Right.
And also like working on singing, like Miss Leonard, my choir teacher,
Yeah.
be like, hey, like maybe you should try out for like Allstate, or maybe you should take some lessons, like get into.
I miss Allstate
Right?
choir.
Wasn't it
so
great?
fun.
Maybe you should like take some like one-on-one lessons. It might be good for you. Like that led me to going to Lee. Like the training that I got, because I also had a guy at JSU teach me like vocal stuff. I forget his name.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it was Dr. White. Having him, even just for a small amount of time, taught me so many good fundamentals that whenever I was going to JSU for 2 years and then decided to transfer into Lee, and I had to get in as a vocalist, so I had to sing an Italian aria and I had to sight read. I was like, okay, I remember some of the positionings in my mouth. I remember how to sing this. I remember when to breathe. And having that baseline was so helpful. So yeah, like people speaking into small things along the way built my character and led me to my career today.
Yeah.
That was good.
That's awesome.
Okay, let's move on. Actually, no, I didn't have my answer. The question was, who do you know personally that inspires you to be better? My answer this episode is someone that I work with and someone I really admire creatively because she works so hard, not only in the office, but on her own artistry stuff. Her name's Dominica Coca. She went to Belmont, is a great and wonderful singer. Chasing the artist thing as well as working at a label just seems impossibly difficult to me. I don't know how you have time for both to do both well, but I think she does that, and she chases artistry unapologetically.
Yeah.
I feel like, especially older people on the industry side, and maybe this is just Christian music, I don't know. Sometimes they can think like, oh, you can't do both. But and walk with me here. Maybe this is childish, but one of my favorite movies is Across the Spider-Verse. Both that one and the first Into the Spider-Verse, the first one, are excellent to me. And there's a scene where Miles Morales, the main hero, is talking to a bunch of other spider people across universes. And the big guy who leads like the spider task force pretty much says like, hey, your dad needs to die. In order for all of us to remain alive, you cannot disrupt the canon of Spider-Man stories. So like Uncle Ben usually dies, police chiefs die, friends die, and that needs to happen in order for all the Spider-Men to continue living in their timelines. And Miles Morales hears this, he's like, what? No way I'm just gonna sit here and let my dad die for the sake of y'all. Like, I can do both. I can try to do both. Like, Spider-Man always tries to do both.
Yeah.
And God, that's such a simple concept.
No, that's
a movie for children. But like, the courage and the confidence that I see in Dominica to try to do both is just so inspiring.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my answer.
That's good.
Thank you. Okay, now we're gonna move on to question 9.
I took a little detour.
No.
I hope that's cool.
That was a great detour.
Yeah.
Question 9: do you still believe in love?
Yeah.
Oh, emphatic yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, I mean, do you mean, well, there's different kinds of love. I mean,
Sure.
I mean, there's the way that I love, my dog. There's the way that I love my mom and dad. There's the way that I love you as a friend. There's a romantic love. There's do you mean all of the above?
I mean, however you want to take it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think it's yes. I mean, I think it motivates most of what humans do is because they care about X, Y, and Z.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm curious, what's your take?
That's a good question. The easy answer is yes. But me actually thinking about it in the moment, I think the answer is still yes. And I created these questions like back in April, March, or whatever. So I think at the time, I really needed to hear this answer from other people. Maybe I was just going through a rough week, thinking about divorce stuff, or just a hard week of life. I don't know. But this question was so essential to me But for the most part, in all the episodes so far, I've said yes. Sometimes I've had a reason, sometimes I haven't. I haven't said no yet. I've said I don't know. That's as far as I've gone. But this week is yes. And I think it's because of the holiday, just like I was saying earlier, just being thankful and grateful for where I am.
Yeah.
And in doing that,
man,
you see love all around you.
You've got a lot of love in your heart. Like whether you know it or not. I mean, you
so
really
touching.
do. No, but genuinely, like, and I think everybody does. It's just a matter of for some people just pulling it out, you know, but yes, absolutely.
Even in the cookies and
dude,
that's a way for me to show love to people and to remember the love that my mom showed when she was passing stuff out, and how much it just showed that she cared for them. Yeah, it's what am I thinking? Of course
that's an easy question to me. Yeah, no doubt in my mind.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, this is question number 10.
Is this it?
This is it.
Okay.
And we'll see where we go from here. What do you want to be remembered for?
I'll tell you what, more than, obviously there's goals and things, that I'd like to achieve in my career.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I just want to be a person of influence for the better. Whether that is whether that is somebody like me saying, for example, just like when I was, in high school and my dad was just like, "Did you ever think about whether it's a simple nudge to somebody that leads them, to chase after a dream, whether that is, hey, you may not even if it's somebody that I've never met and it's just, hey, the way that I watched you, play something and the passion that you did it with, or like, hey, that influenced me, that had a big influence or inspired me. Or it's just walking into a room and, being an encouragement to somebody, and that influences somebody to say, wow, did you see the way that he lifted that person up? I need to be more cognizant of that and make a point to do that to other people. Fill in the blank with any good and wonderful thing. Just being a person of influence. In a positive way. That's how I want to be remembered.
That's a bar, bro. Good Lord, I'm cutting that out. I want to be remembered for our presidential bid. Which, I mean, we've missed the window.
We've already missed it.
Tell the story. Okay, tell the story of.
We did not get one singular vote. I didn't even vote for us. Because we just. So.
Oh my gosh.
Earlier we were talking about, just the struggles with our weight and being healthy. And it was earlier this year. We were in the thick of all of that, and I just being funny. I have a way of, and you do too, but we have a shared way of just saying really hyperbolic statements just for the sake of being funny.
Yes.
And they're never thought out. You can't premeditate them or
really
it's not funny. It's just in the moment, you just spout something off.
Yes.
And it usually doesn't make any sense, but it's just hilarious. And so we were talking about our goals, and it's like you were saying earlier with the 250 or the 240 thing. It's man, if I could just if I could just do this thing, if I could just get to the, know, and I was sharing a similar thing. It's and I don't even remember what the goal was, but I just remember saying, man, if I could just get to this goal, I could do I could be the president,
so funny.
And so it began.
Oh my God.
We just, anytime we would be like, hey, I ate really well today and I exercised. Anderson Floyd 2024. We just started. We're gonna do this, and come November, we're gonna be on the ballot. And
It's so funny. Oh my
we
God.
didn't make it.
And maybe
Just
this
so you
is
know.
the dumbest thing ever to anyone else who's watching, but good Lord. I mean, I'm still getting a run out of it. And it's been however long that was mentioned. Yeah, we missed the window for sure. It is November.
Yeah.
But like, that was good motivation for me multiple times. Just like, man, I don't want to do push-ups, which I was doing a certain amount a day every day for maybe 4 months straight.
Yeah.
And there were many, many days I didn't want to do it. I was like, man, Anderson Floyd, 24. I got to make sure I'm right.
Yeah. Something as goofy as that, but you're right. It's, I mean, hey, whatever it takes to find those little nuggets of, no pun intended, but
beaver nuggets,
you know, you know what I'm saying.
Yes, of course. Yeah, whatever it takes. That was kind of my joke answer. But to be honest, I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with a different answer for these questions every month, which is difficult. So I don't know. That might actually have to be my answer, which is great because like it'll now be immortalized. Our epic failure.
2028, here we come.
Maybe we can run for Senate. We could be in 26.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, let's take another quick break. We'll be back with the outro.
All right.
Thank you, everyone, for watching this month's episode. And Garrett, thank you for being a guest.
Man, thank you. What a great day. I said it earlier. I'm going to say it again. This has been awesome.
We're almost back to his place. Like, we've got 15 minutes to go. But I figured, you know what? Screw it. Let's just close it out. Be done. This has been a great day. A really fun episode. So thankful we went to Buc-ee's. It had been too long since I had one of their brisket sandwiches. Oh, Heavenly Father. Let me stop. Where can we point the people to? Got anything going on? What's your socials? Any songs that you're working on with artists or anything?
Man, I'm really not incredibly active on my socials.
Almost no one I have on is.
I'm really not. I mean, I have it, and I'll post every now and then, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I never want to cross that threshold of posting too much to where it looks a certain way.
Of course.
Looks. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Do.
That was,
Bumpy.
So, yeah, I'm not too active on there. In terms of songs, honestly, there have been a few sessions that I've played on recently.
Yeah.
That has been I thought was some pretty cool stuff.
Okay.
Unfortunately, none of it is out currently.
Yeah.
So
this episode will probably drop in May.
Okay. And yeah, and that's the thing about it. I usually don't find out about any of this stuff until
yeah, that does happen.
It's already out, and then maybe I just end up finding it eventually. Maybe if by that time when you upload this, maybe there can be like a link to something if I find out something.
Yeah. Okay. You can follow me at Steflo55, STEFLO55. I did post a kind of behind the scenes / poetry reading / come cook with me or bake with me vibes video somewhat recently that you could check out, kind of like a mini moment of friendly introspection, I guess. And you can follow the show at A Moment Pod everywhere that I'm putting stuff. So yeah, that's about it. We're almost home. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Thank you for joining us for a moment. See you next month. Bye. That was very vulnerable. Thank you for sharing.
That was, yeah.
Appreciate it.
No problem, yeah.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to clap just in case.
Oh, how big of an audience do you think you're going to have on this?
2 people.
Yeah,
You're in there. That's really it.